The night was colder than death itself. The wind screamed across the white desert of the alien planet, carrying sharp snowflakes that cut like tiny blades. The sky was dark, filled with lightning that flashed behind thick clouds. The ground trembled now and then, as if the planet itself was angry at the life struggling on its surface. Through this endless storm moved a single figure, tall, cloaked in torn silver fabric. Her skin glowed faintly blue beneath the frost. She was the alien queen of Thalora, once worshipped across 7 star systems. Now she was nothing more than a mother fighting for her child. In her arms, wrapped in the last piece of her royal robe, lay a small alien boy. His breathing was weak. Every time he coughed, blue mist left his mouth and froze in the air. "Hold on, my son. Hold on," she whispered, her voice trembling from both fear and cold. But the child did not answer. His eyes fluttered weakly, his small chest rising and falling slower each time. Behind them, a ship burned in the distance, the royal vessel, now broken in half. Flames fought against the storm, slowly dying under waves of snow. Somewhere far away, the king's voice still echoed in her mind, his last words before he left. "You are a traitor, Myra. You chose weakness over power. I will not die for you." He had fled. The king, her mate, the ruler of millions, had abandoned her and their only child to die in this frozen wasteland. He had taken the guards, the supplies, and the escape craft. Only she remained, running through the storm, clutching her half-dead son. The queen's legs shook with exhaustion. Each step felt like her bones were turning to glass. She looked up at the sky, and no stars, only the endless storm. The planet's twin moons were hidden. The cold bit deep into her skin. Her body armor, once shining and strong, was now cracked and covered in ice. In the distance, she saw something faint. A light, small but steady. It blinked red and white. Hope sparked inside her chest. Could it be a ship? Or a settlement? She didn't know, but she had to reach it. For her child, step by step, she pushed forward through the storm. Her feet sank into snow that reached her knees. The wind howled like a monster trying to push her back. She fell once, twice, maybe more times, and she couldn't remember. Her vision blurred. Her son's head rested on her arm, motionless. "Don't leave me," she whispered. "You're my light, my reason to live, please." For a moment she thought she heard something. A sound different from the storm. A faint mechanical hum, steady and rhythmic. It was coming from the direction of the blinking light. Her heart raced. That sound, it was human technology. Fear filled her eyes. Humans were dangerous. They were known for their wars, for destroying planets they couldn't control. The last time her people met humans, blood had been spilled on both sides, but now she had no choice. If there was even one human alive in that outpost, she would beg. She would fall to her knees if it meant saving her child. The storm grew stronger. She could no longer feel her hands. Her eyes burned from the snow. She stumbled forward and fell face first into the cold. For a few seconds, she couldn't move. Her mind screamed at her to get up, but her body refused. The child in her arms was silent. "No," she gasped, forcing herself up. She pressed her glowing hand over the boy's chest, trying to share her warmth. A weak pulse, faint but still there. Hope returned. She took one last deep breath and pushed forward. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she reached the light. It was not a ship. It was a small human research station, half buried in snow, metal walls shaking from the storm. A human flag, faded and torn, flapped weakly above the entrance. The queen looked at the door, her vision fading. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Please, help me." She hit the metal door with her fist, once, twice, no answer. Her strength was leaving her. She fell to her knees, still holding her child tightly, her head lowered, snow covering her shoulders. Inside the station, sensors detected movement. A red alarm blinked on a console. Footsteps echoed inside. A shadow appeared through the frosted window, human-shaped, cautious but curious. The queen could barely see now. Her vision turned white. But just before darkness took her, she saw the door opening slowly. A wave of warm air touched her face. Through the bright doorway stood a human man, his face partly covered by a breathing mask. His eyes widened as he saw her, an alien queen kneeling in the snow, clutching a dying child. He didn't speak. He simply stepped forward, removed his gloves, and reached out his hand. For the first time in her life, the queen touched a human, and that single touch would change the future of 2 species forever. Dr. Elias Ward had not seen another living soul for nearly 6 months. His research station sat on the edge of the galaxy, built on an icy planet that most maps didn't even name anymore. The outpost was small, metal walls, flickering lights, and the endless hum of machines keeping him company. To him, silence was both friend and enemy. Elias was a medic, a human who once worked on warships. He had seen soldiers die in his arms, seen whole planets burn under orders he couldn't question. After years of blood and guilt, he left the wars behind. Now he treated alien diseases, hoping maybe, just maybe, he could heal more than just bodies. That night he was reviewing medical logs when the alarm rang. A red light blinked on his screen. External life signs detected, he frowned. Life signs? Out here? The nearest city was light years away. Nothing survived the snowstorms of this planet. But the signal was weak. 2 life forms close to his airlock. He grabbed his coat, slipped on his gloves, and stepped into the airlock. The wind outside howled so fiercely it felt like the world was trying to tear him apart. His visor fogged instantly. Through the white storm, he saw a dark shape collapse near the door. He moved closer, kneeling down. What he saw made him freeze. It wasn't human. The figure was tall, skin shimmering faintly blue under the frost. In her arms was a small child, limp and pale. Elias's heart pounded. He recognized that glow, Thalorian biology. A species known for intelligence, beauty, and war. Humans had fought them decades ago. He hesitated. His training screamed, "Don't interfere." His heart whispered, "Help them." The Queen's eyes opened slightly. Her voice was soft, broken by the cold. "Please, my child." That was all he needed. Elias lifted the 2 into his arms and carried them through the storm, his boots sinking deep into the snow. Inside the station, the warmth hit like fire. He laid them on the medical bed, removed his gloves, and began scanning. "Come on, stay with me," he muttered, checking the child's vitals. The scanner beeped wildly. Oxygen too low, blood freezing, internal damage. The alien lungs weren't processing the planet's air. Without help, the boy had minutes left. Elias rushed to the supply cabinet, pulling out tubes, oxygen injectors, and nanogel. His hands moved fast, like they remembered the rhythm of saving lives. He connected the child to a life support mask and pushed energy fluid into his veins. The mother stirred, eyes wide with fear. What are you doing to him?" "Saving him," Elias replied calmly. "If you don't fight me." Her eyes softened, but confusion lingered. "What, help us? You are human." He didn't answer at first. He just looked at the child's monitor, watching the heart rate climb from nothing to a weak, steady pulse. Then he said quietly, "Because no one deserves to die in the cold." For a long time, there was silence. Only the hum of machines and the distant roar of the storm. The Queen watched him work, her sharp eyes studying every move. She had seen humans before, warriors, hunters, destroyers. But this one, he was different. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from care. When the boy finally stabilized, Elias stepped back, exhausted. "He'll live. For now." The Queen's voice broke as she whispered, "Thank you." He poured a cup of warm water and handed it to her. "Drink, you've lost a lot of energy." She hesitated before taking it. Her fingers brushed his glove. Cold skin meeting warm leather. "My name is Myra," she said softly. "Queen of Thalora," Elias blinked. "Queen?" "Yes," she said bitterly. "But tonight just a mother." She looked away, tears freezing on her face. "My husband, the king, left us. He made a deal with enemies. I tried to stop him. He called me a traitor." Elias felt anger rise inside him. He left his own child to die? Her silence was the answer. He turned toward the window, snow hitting the glass in furious waves. "If your husband made enemies, they'll come looking," he said quietly. "You brought danger with you." "I know," she said. "But I had nowhere else to go," Elias sighed. He had sworn never to get involved in another war. Never again. But looking at the boy, so small, so fragile, he knew he couldn't turn away. "Then you stay here," he said finally, "at least until he can walk again." The Queen looked at him, her glowing eyes softening. "You risk your life for strangers," Elias smiled faintly. "That's what doctors do." Outside, lightning flashed across the stormy sky. Unseen by both of them, a satellite above the planet blinked, sending a signal deep into space. A new message began its journey toward the stars. Location confirmed. Royal fugitives found. Inside the warm station, the human medic didn't know yet that saving one child had just made him the most wanted man in the galaxy. The storm outside never stopped. It screamed against the metal walls of the research station like a living beast. But inside there was silence, heavy and uneasy. Dr. Elias Ward sat by the glowing bed, watching the small alien boy breathe. The child's chest moved weakly, each rise and fall a tiny victory. Tubes and wires covered his body, but the life inside him was stubborn, just like his mother's eyes, fierce and unbroken. The queen, Myra of Thalora, sat nearby, wrapped in a blanket. Her silver armor was cracked, her crown gone. To Elias she looked less like a ruler, and more like someone who had lost everything but refused to surrender. His vitals are steady, Elias said quietly. He'll live, but he needs rest and your body needs warmth. Myra didn't answer. She was staring at the snowstorm outside the window, her mind far away. After a long silence, she finally spoke. Do you know why we were running? Elias turned to her. I guessed someone wanted you dead, but I didn't ask. I figured you'd tell me when you were ready. Her glowing eyes met his. It wasn't just someone. It was my husband, King Theros. Elias froze. The king? Your own husband? Myra nodded slowly. The galaxy calls him a hero. A warrior who ended wars. But the truth is darker. He made peace only by selling souls. Elias leaned forward, curiosity and dread mixing in his chest. Selling souls? She looked down at her hands. The Thalorians were dying. Our energy cores were running out. Theros promised to save us. He said he found new power and from the warlords of the Iron Sun. Her voice shook as she spoke the name. They are monsters. Humans would call them pirates. But Theros made a deal, our freedom for their machines. Elias frowned. So he traded your people's safety for control. He traded our future for power, she whispered. He gave them our soldiers. Our children. I found the records. Thalorian children taken for testing. My son was next. Elias felt a cold chill that had nothing to do with the storm. He looked at the sleeping boy. You ran to save him. Yes, she said, tears glowing faintly in her eyes. I tried to take him away. But Theros found out. He called me a traitor. He said no queen defies a king. She paused, staring at her son. He told me mercy is weakness. But what he calls weakness, humans call love. Elias said nothing. He knew too well what power could do. He had seen generals sacrifice cities for pride. He had seen heroes become monsters in the name of order. What happened after you escaped? He asked quietly. Myra's hands trembled. I took a royal ship and fled through the storm. But Theros sent hunters after me. Machines built to erase any witness. They shot us down. I tried to land near the magnetic poles to hide, but... She looked down. The crash killed my guards. Only we survived. Elias took a deep breath. Then it's only a matter of time before they find you here. I know, she said calmly. That's why I'm telling you the truth. You deserve to know what you're risking. He looked at her, tired, brave, yet still full of fire. You think I'll turn you in? You should, she said. If they learn you helped me, they will hunt you too. The king has spies across systems. No one defies him and lives. Elias smiled faintly. You don't know humans very well. Myra tilted her head. No? He stood and walked to the window, staring at the storm. We've been hunted by our own kind. We've faced kings, empires, even our mistakes. But when someone's in trouble, we help. That's what makes us human. She watched him quietly, a strange warmth spreading in her chest. For the first time in months, she didn't feel completely alone, but peace never lasts long. An alarm beeped softly from the corner console. Elias frowned and checked the screen. A red symbol flashed, incoming transmission. It wasn't from Earth, it was coded in Thalorian script. He glanced at Myra. Is this yours? Her face turned pale. No, it's them. The screen flickered to life, showing a dark figure, tall, armored in black metal. His eyes burned like fire. Queen Myra, the voice hissed through static. You can't hide forever. The king wants his family back and or their ashes. The signal cut off. Silence filled the room again. Elias looked at her. They found you. Myra stood slowly, her strength returning, her voice cold as the wind outside. Then we fight. Elias shook his head. You're injured. The boy's still weak. She looked straight into his eyes. You don't understand. They won't stop. They'll kill you too. You saved my son. That makes you a threat. Elias took a deep breath. Then I'll be a threat worth remembering. The queen stared at him, studying this strange human who stood between life and death so easily. And for the first time since the storm began, she smiled. A small, tired, but genuine smile. Perhaps, she said softly, your kind is not as weak as the king believed. Outside, the storm howled louder, and above the clouds, black ships began to descend, silent, sharp, and hungry. The hunt for the queen had begun, and the human medic was now part of a war he never wanted. The storm outside had calmed, but the silence that followed was worse. It was the kind of silence that carried danger, the stillness before something terrible. Dr. Elias Ward sat in the command chair, eyes locked on the radar. Strange red dots had appeared, moving fast across the screen. They're here, he whispered. Queen Myra stood beside him, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. She looked calm, but inside her heart raced like thunder. Those signals. Thalorian hunters. The king sent his machines, Elias frowned. Machines? Not just machines, she said softly. They think, they hunt. They don't stop until their target stops breathing. He didn't waste time. His hands flew over the controls, shutting down external lights and power. We go dark, he said. If they can't see heat, they might miss us, but Myra shook her head. They'll smell energy, even a spark from a heartbeat. Elias looked around. His research lab was full of equipment, generators, scanners, heaters. It was like holding a beacon in the dark. Then we hide deeper. He guided her through a narrow hallway into a lower chamber sealed behind a heavy door, his underground lab. He had built it years ago for experiments too dangerous for the surface. Now it would become their shelter. Inside, the air was cold but still. Walls of metal surrounded a single operating table and shelves filled with medical tools. Elias set the queen's child on the bed. The boy's breathing was slow again. His pulse flickered weakly on the monitor. Elias's stomach tightened. Something was wrong. He's losing oxygen again, he said quickly. His lungs can't keep up. Myra stepped closer, panic flashing in her eyes. You said he was healing. I thought he was, Elias said, voice low but steady. But his lungs, they're collapsing. His body can't handle the air mix. The atmosphere here is killing him. Myra grabbed the edge of the table, her voice cracking. Then do something, please. Elias looked at her, then at the boy. His mind raced through every medical file, every design he had ever studied. And then, an impossible idea hit him. He turned to his storage locker and pulled out a black metal case. Inside lay spare parts, components meant for combat androids. Artificial hearts, synthetic muscles, carbon filters. He stared at them, his pulse quickening. What are you doing? Myra asked, confused. Elias exhaled slowly. Your son's lungs are failing. Human tech can replace them, partially. Her eyes widened. Replace? With machines? Yes, artificial lungs, a hybrid. Human-designed Thalorian energy cells. It's never been done before. She hesitated. It could kill him. Elias looked up. Or save him. But if we do nothing, he dies tonight. Myra closed her eyes. A tear slipped down her cheek. Do it, she whispered. Elias nodded once. Then everything moved fast. He sterilized the table, powered up the surgery lights, and activated his medical drones. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from knowing this was his only chance. Outside, the storm began to roar again, but it wasn't nature this time. It was the engines of the hunter ships. Black shadows moved across the snow, their red sensors sweeping the ground. Their leader, a tall metal figure with burning eyes, raised his arm. Scan for heat, it commanded in a cold metallic voice. The queen breathes. We find her. Inside the underground lab, Elias worked quickly. The surgery had begun. He opened the boy's chest carefully, replacing the failing organs with gleaming silver structures that hummed softly with energy. Myra stood by, her hands shaking as she watched the man risk everything for her child. Sweat rolled down Elias's face. Come on, he muttered. Stay with me, kid. Suddenly, the ground above shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling. The queen gasped. They've landed, she said, her voice trembling. Then they'll find us soon. Elias replied, not looking up. So let's finish before they do. The surgery room lights flickered. Power levels were dropping. One of the drones sparked and went dead. Elias clenched his jaw. No time. He connected the final wire between the human tech and alien energy crystal and pressed the activation key. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the child's chest rose, slowly, then stronger and stronger. A faint metallic glow spread under his skin. He's breathing, Elias said, relief flooding his face. He's really breathing. Myra covered her mouth, tears falling freely now. You gave him life. But their moment of peace was short. A loud explosion echoed through the tunnels. The door above them shuddered as metal claws tore at it. The hunter's voice echoed through the comm system. Detected, 2 heartbeats. 1 hybrid life form. Target confirmed. Elias grabbed his plasma cutter. They're here. Myra stepped forward, her eyes blazing. I'll fight. He looked at her. You're weak, she smirked faintly. Then I'll die standing. The door split open with a thunderous crack. Smoke and snow poured in as the first metal hunter dropped through the ceiling, its red eyes glowing. Elias stood beside the queen, weapon in hand. He glanced at the boy's breathing form and whispered to himself, You better make this worth it, kid. Then the human medic faced the machines of a galactic king, ready to fight not for war but for life. The walls shook. The sound of metal tearing filled the underground lab as the first hunter broke through the ceiling. Its body was black chrome, tall as 2 men, eyes burning red like molten fire. The air smelled of smoke and static. Dr. Elias Ward tightened his grip on the plasma cutter. His pulse thundered in his ears, but his focus was sharp. The queen stood beside him, weak but unyielding, her silver eyes glowing in the dim light. Behind them, her son, the child with new artificial lungs, breathed steadily, the faint hum of human and alien technology blending into one sound. Life. The first hunter dropped into the room. Unauthorized life form detected, it said, its voice metallic and cold. Eliminate the human. Retrieve the queen. Elias stepped forward. You'll have to go through me. He swung the plasma cutter, slicing through the air. The blade of light cut deep into the hunter's arm, sparks flying, but the machine barely flinched. It raised its weapon, a glowing spear humming with energy. Elias ducked, rolling across the floor as the spear smashed into the wall, sending fragments of metal flying. Myra raised her hand, her palms glowing blue. Energy burst from her skin, a Tellurian force wave, slamming the hunter back. Move! She shouted. Elias leapt toward the control panel and hit a switch. The lab's defense drones whirred to life, hovering above. They fired bursts of plasma, filling the air with flashes of light. The hunter staggered, armor melting under the heat, but more shadows appeared through the hole above. 3 more hunters descending, they're multiplying. Elias yelled. Myra clenched her fists. Theros sent his best. He won't stop until we're dead. The queen's strength returned with her anger. She stood tall, energy flowing through her body. Her eyes burned like twin suns. Let them come. The battle exploded into chaos. Plasma bolts, energy waves, and machine roars echoed through the metal corridors. Elias fought like a man possessed, using every tool he could find. Lasers, shields, even chemical fire from his lab. Each move was desperate but precise. He wasn't a soldier, but he fought like someone who had seen too much death to give up now. A hunter charged at him, spear raised. Elias grabbed a metal pipe and shoved it into the machine's joint, twisting hard. The spear dropped. He slammed the plasma cutter into its chest. The hunter convulsed, circuits frying before collapsing in a burst of sparks. Myra faced 2 at once. Her energy blasts lit up the dark room like lightning strikes. One hunter lunged. She sidestepped and sliced it in half with a blade of pure light. The other caught her arm, crushing it. She screamed but blasted the creature point blank in the face. It fell, its red eyes dimming. For a moment everything went still. Smoke filled the air, glowing red from the flicker of fire and broken circuits. Elias coughed, his arm bleeding. You okay? Myra nodded weakly, her arm trembling. I will be. What about my son? Elias turned toward the bed. The boy was still breathing, the new lung shining softly beneath his skin. But the life support monitor flickered. He's stable, for now. But their relief didn't last. A deep mechanical rumble echoed from above. The entire ceiling began to shake. "What is that?" Elias asked, his eyes widening. Myra's face turned pale. "The commander." The roof exploded. Snow and metal rained down as a massive hunter descended, twice as large as the others, covered in black armor with gold marks. Its voice was deep, almost human. "Queen Myra, by order of King Theros, your life ends here." Elias raised his weapon. "You'll have to kill me first." The hunter tilted its head, scanning him. "Human, unregistered, irrelevant." That word, irrelevant, and sparked something inside Elias. He had spent his life trying to matter, trying to fix what others broke. And now this machine dared to call him nothing. He smirked. "Let's see how irrelevant I am." He pulled a small detonator from his belt and threw it at the wall. The explosion shook the lab, collapsing part of the tunnel. The roof cracked open to the stormy night above. Wind and snow poured in. Elias shouted over the chaos, "Myra, get the boy. Head for the exit tunnel." "What about you?" she yelled. He turned, blood dripping from his forehead. "I'll keep them busy." Before she could protest, he charged toward the giant hunter. The machine swung its arm, sending him crashing into the wall. Pain shot through his ribs, but he pushed up again, face set with grim determination. "You don't quit," the hunter said, almost amused. "Neither do humans," Elias spat. He grabbed a fuel line from the floor and jammed it into the hunter's armor. Sparks flew. The air filled with fire as the fuel ignited. The explosion threw both of them apart. Elias fell hard, coughing smoke. The hunter staggered, its armor burning, its red eyes flickering. Myra grabbed her son and ran toward the opening. Snow whipped at her face as she climbed out, clutching the boy to her chest. "Elias!" she screamed. He looked up at her through the smoke, smiling faintly. "Go, I'll find you," the hunter roared, stepping through the flames. Elias reached for the console, his fingers trembling. He hit the emergency lockdown. The metal doors slammed shut between them, sealing the queen and her child outside in the storm, and trapping him inside with the machine. Outside, Myra fell to her knees in the snow, tears freezing on her cheeks. Behind her, the boy stirred, his eyes opening slowly. The artificial lungs glowed brighter, releasing a soft blue mist that shimmered in the air. He was alive. Her son was alive. And somewhere beneath the snow, a human medic was still fighting, one man against the king's wrath. Snow fell softly over the ruins of the research station. Smoke curled up into the dark sky, glowing orange where the fire still burned. The storm had calmed, but the silence that followed was worse. It was the silence of victory that hadn't been earned. Queen Myra stood on the frozen ground, holding her child tightly against her chest. The boy's breathing was steady, his new artificial lungs humming softly, glowing with faint human light. Each breath he took was proof that hope still existed, even in the coldest corner of the galaxy. But her eyes were fixed on the smoking hole where the lab had once stood. Elias Ward, the human medic who saved her son, was gone beneath the wreckage. The queen's knees trembled as she whispered, "He bought us time. He shouldn't have stayed behind." The child stirred weakly and opened his glowing eyes. "Mother, the human?" She brushed his hair gently. "He's still fighting." Even if she didn't know for sure, she couldn't speak the truth. Not yet. Suddenly, the air vibrated with a deep hum, a sound that made the ground tremble. Myra looked up, her eyes narrowing. In the sky, the clouds split apart as a massive warship descended, its engines roaring like thunder. The symbol on its hull, a golden crown over black steel, was unmistakable. The king had returned. Inside the ship's throne chamber, King Theros of Thalora stood tall, dressed in armor that gleamed like obsidian. His face was cold, beautiful, and cruel. He stared down at the frozen landscape through the ship's glass viewport. "The queen survived," his commander said, kneeling. "Our hunters failed. But the signal confirms human interference." Theros' jaw tightened. "A human?" He almost laughed. "Always these pathetic creatures. They meddle in every war, pretending to be saviors." He turned sharply, his eyes burning. "Bring the ship lower. I will finish this myself." The commander hesitated. "Your Majesty, if you go down—" "Do not question me," Theros hissed. "My family betrayed me. The throne demands punishment." He stepped forward, his cape flowing behind him like a shadow. "And this human, he will learn what happens when he plays God with royal blood." Back on the surface, the wind roared again. Myra watched as the king's warship descended, crushing snow beneath its massive landing claws. The ground shook with each impact. She hid her child behind a broken wall. "Stay quiet, my son. No matter what happens." The ship's ramp lowered and a tall figure emerged, King Theros himself. His armor shimmered black and gold, his crown pulsing faintly with energy. He looked at her, smiling coldly. "My queen," he said, voice smooth as ice. "You look tired." Myra stepped forward, her eyes filled with fury. "You left us to die, Theros. You called yourself a king, but you are only a coward." Theros chuckled. "Coward? No, I made choices you were too weak to make. You care for the few. I care for the Empire." "You sold our children," she shouted, her voice echoing through the snow. "You turned your own people into weapons for pirates." His smile faded. "Peace requires sacrifice." Before Myra could speak, a sound behind them made them both turn. A low rumble from beneath the ice. Then with a deafening crash, part of the ground exploded upward. Smoke and fire burst from the snow, and from the flames, a shadow rose, Dr. Elias Ward. His suit was torn, his face bruised, but his eyes burned with defiance. He coughed, gripping the plasma cutter in one hand, his other arm wrapped in bandages. Theros raised an eyebrow. "Ah, the human." Elias looked up at the king. "You must be the one who runs away while others die for him." Theros' smile vanished. "You dare speak to me like that?" Elias limped closer, his voice low but steady. "You left your family to die. I saved them. Guess that makes me more of a king than you?" The queen's eyes widened, a small smile breaking through her pain. Theros' fury ignited. His armor glowed red as he raised his hand, energy forming in his palm. "You will regret those words." The ground cracked beneath his feet as he unleashed a blast of pure force. Elias dove aside, the explosion sending snow and metal flying. He fired back with his plasma cutter, the beam cutting across the king's armor, leaving a glowing scar. The king growled. "Impressive." For an insect, Elias stood his ground. "You call yourself powerful, but you abandoned the only people who mattered." Myra stepped forward beside him, her eyes blazing. "He speaks truth, Theros." The king turned his gaze to her. "You dare stand with a human?" She raised her chin proudly. "He saved our son when you would have let him die. Tell me, Theros, which of you is more alien now?" For a moment, even the wind seemed to stop. Theros' face twisted in rage. "Enough." He raised both hands, summoning a wave of black energy. The air vibrated, lightning striking the snow around them. But before the blast could hit, something unexpected happened. The queen's child, half human now, stepped out from behind the wall. His small chest glowed with blue and white light. Each breath pulsed brighter, spreading energy through the air. The king froze, staring at him. "What is this?" Elias's voice was quiet but firm. "That's your son, alive because of human hands." The boy lifted his gaze toward his father. His voice was small but strong. "Father, stop." The light from his chest grew brighter, so bright that the snow turned to steam. The wind froze mid-air, and the king's energy blast shattered before it could reach them. Theros stumbled back, shielding his eyes. What have you done to him?" Elias stepped forward. "I didn't just save him. I made him something new. A bridge between two worlds." The child took a step closer, his breath glowing like starlight. "No more war. No more hate." The king dropped to one knee, his armor sparking. His voice trembled for the first time. "What are you?" "My mother's courage," the boy said softly, "and a human's heart." The snowstorm faded. The sky cleared. The world held its breath. Elias lowered his weapon. The queen wrapped her arm around her son, tears of pride and love in her eyes. King Theros looked at them and his family, and for the first time he saw not weakness, but something he had long forgotten. Mercy. The sky was quiet. For the first time in days there was no storm, no thunder, no screams, no fire. Just the soft sound of wind moving gently across the frozen ground. The snow that had once fallen like knives now drifted down slowly, peaceful and calm, as if the planet itself was finally breathing again. The battle was over. King Theros knelt in the snow, his black armor cracked and dim, his crown half buried beneath the frost. His face, in once proud, cruel, untouchable night, now looked empty. The light from his eyes had faded. Before him stood his queen, her cloak torn, her body trembling but strong, and beside her stood their son, glowing faintly with the strange new light of life. Dr. Elias Ward stood a few steps behind them, leaning on his plasma cutter like a cane. His body was battered, his breath shallow, but his eyes burned with quiet strength. He had no crown, no army, no empire. And yet at that moment every heart on that battlefield beat for him. The boy looked at his father. "You called love a weakness," he said softly. "But love is what saved me. It's what saved us all." Theros looked up, his voice cracked and bitter. "You think this human made you stronger? He defiled what we are. You're not pure." The boy's eyes glowed brighter. "Then I never wished to be pure." That single line struck Theros like a blade. His own words, once spoken to justify war and control, now turned against him by his child. For a moment the king of Thalera looked less like a ruler and more like a lost soul, a man who had traded his heart for power, and finally realized the cost. The queen stepped closer, her voice quiet but sharp. "Your rule is over, Theros. You built your empire on fear. My son will build a new one on hope." Theros's head lowered. Snowflakes fell on his armor as he whispered, "Perhaps that is what I once wanted too." He looked up at Elias, the human who stood without bowing, who had fought without hate. "You," Theros said slowly, "are either the most foolish man I've met, or the bravest." Elias gave a tired smile. "Sometimes those are the same thing." The king's gaze softened, just a little. "Take them," he said to the guards who had arrived late to the battle. "Take them home." Then he stood, removed the broken crown from his head and let it fall into the snow. "The galaxy no longer needs a king like me." He turned and walked into the blizzard alone. No one followed. Hours later, inside the quiet safety of the human outpost, the queen watched her son sleep peacefully on a clean bed. The glow of his new lungs pulsed softly with every breath, human science and alien strength living together inside one body. Elias stood near the doorway, looking out at the white horizon. The warship was gone. The danger had passed, but he felt an emptiness, the kind that comes when purpose leaves with the storm. Myra turned toward him. "You could come with us," she said softly. "Thalora owes you a debt greater than any gold or crown." Elias smiled faintly. "I'm not built for thrones, Myra. I'm a healer, not a ruler. My job ends when people start living again." The queen stepped closer. "Then at least let history remember your name." He shook his head. "Names fade. But if your people remember kindness, compassion, and the courage to forgive, and that's enough." Myra's eyes glistened. "You think peace is that simple?" Elias chuckled softly. "No, but it has to start somewhere." She looked at him for a long moment, then bowed, a queen bowing to a human medic. "You saved my son. You saved my soul. The stars themselves will remember you, Elias Ward." He watched her ship lift off into the sky, its engines glowing blue against the fading storm. The snow swirled gently around him, and for the first time, the world felt quiet, not empty, but alive. As the ship disappeared among the clouds, Elias whispered to the wind, "Maybe this is how peace begins, and not with armies, but with one person choosing to care." Far above the planet, in the endless dark of space, the queen's ship carried the boy, half Thalorian, half human, sleeping peacefully in her arms. His breathing was calm, his chest glowing softly. Myra smiled down at him. "Sleep, my son. The stars are waiting for you." The child's hand twitched, glowing faintly in rhythm with his heartbeat. "Mother," he murmured in his sleep, "will I ever see him again?" The queen looked out the window where distant stars shimmered like tears in the night. "One day," she whispered, "when the galaxy is ready for heroes who don't wear crowns." And on the frozen planet below, the last human light in the outpost flickered, a single beacon glowing against the endless dark, marking the place where a man once stood between two worlds, and changed them both. The end.